I think you're getting us spoiled. I mean, it's, these national appearances by you guys. Is it almost going to be a letdown if you guys don't make it the Nationals this year?
We're just trying to make it to First Regatta, which is obviously happening this weekend, so there's a lot of excitement that's involved in that. A lot of training leading up to this. And, Sacramento has always been kind of our season kickoff, our home away from home. There's going to be a lot of good crews there, and we'll face off with UCSD. They have really been building the last couple of years, some exceptional recruiting, a very deep team. And, they went to Dad Vales last year and just didn't perform well and didn't get to go to the national championships. And had they stayed home, they would have probably gone as the at-large team. So we understand that and really believe that they're going to be fast this year. And so I think, we're just all trying to figure out what's going to happen on Saturday, and then once that happens, everything kind of falls into place to give you an idea if all the training that you've been doing for months now are paying off. We'll face off against Sac State and St. Mary's College, two traditionally fast teams that are generally speed caliber of Western Washington, and so that I think will be helpful for us to know as well. It's there's rain in the forecast, so they've talked about perhaps condensing the schedule for the concerns of weather, and for as much weather as we've seen at home and really up in the Pacific Northwest, we feel like this is going to be a theme for the season. And so we'll head down there and we'll race on Saturday. We are doing something a little different this year. If you guys have seen the race schedule, we've seen a lot of compression in the month of May, and we've actually lost a regatta or two this year. So for spring break, we will race on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, each going to a different location and venue. So after we race on Saturday, we'll go next to UC Davis for Sunday morning, face off with UC Davis and Orange Coast College. Orange Coast College is probably one of the best JC feeder programs in the United States. They send kids all over the United States on really good rowing scholarships. So they're traditionally a very fast team. UC Davis is in a transition of a new coach, but they've consistently had fast squads. So we'll face off with them on Sunday morning, and then we'll head over to Orinda and face off with St. Mary's College on Tuesday afternoon and Mills College on our Monday afternoon, and Mills College on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, you talked about weather. I know softball, they're still trying to be at home, and for you guys getting ready for the season, how has the weather impacted you guys at all?
Well, I think probably most of the crews in the West, all over the United States, right? So for us to be able to row year-round is a pretty remarkable thing. So our friends that generally don't get on the water until April because their lakes and rivers are frozen, this is a great advantage for us. So I feel like even despite the limited rowing, so if we get 4 days in the week on the water, we feel pretty lucky. But they've been pretty great days. I feel really fortunate to have had that time on the water. I talked to John Fuchs from Western Washington yesterday. He said that they have had some of the worst weather in years, which means a lot of their training is happening indoors. We know that while rowing ergometers don't float, they are a very good tool for training. So the more time you're spending on those probably can make you a lot faster.
On paper, how do you guys look? There has to be some excitement. I'm always excitement to get the season started, but after some really good years that you guys have had, talk about the excitement, just what kind of team you're going to have this year.
It's always interesting on paper because the performance time trials that you're doing day in and day out on the ergometers can be very helpful to what you're expecting in speed when you get out there. We did lose 7 very remarkable rowers last year for all the right reasons, right? So matriculation is really good. But, as it comes in and filling that depth, I still think we're fairly young. We had 24 women return from last year's freshman squad. They're young and just very hungry. So they put in some really good sweat equity this semester. We lost a lot of momentum between when we got off the water in November to when we came back in January, which is traditional, unfortunately, because NC2A requires us to be off the water for 2 months So for 2 months, you can say for a couple of those weeks we need you to be conditioning for 8 hours a week, but nothing's going to replace that training that you have day in and day out. And so that's kind of the Division II rule for us, and we even have an exception. So we do get a little bit more water time in the fall, but that's primarily to train those new ladies how to row that are going to be into your squad as you come into racing season. We have it's pretty exciting, right? So to have 24 young ladies return has made our varsity program a lot deeper. So we're rowing, we have 3 solid varsity 8s this year. And if you look at the numbers of what you need and the depth that you need to be rowing, you really need that many to row your varsity 8, your varsity 4, your 2B8, and your JV4. These are all boats that are starting to matriculate up towards your NC2A ranking. And then we have a pretty scrappy group of walk-on freshmen novice this year, and we have a novice 8 and a novice 4. And that program is a little bit smaller than it normally is, but that's mostly because we had so many ladies return. So just in trying to figure out coach to ratio what's reasonable. So if I go out in a safety launch, how many students can I really have out there where it's safe? And so that I think also drives the number of people that we can have out on the water. I think we're all excited. It's pretty tough if you think about starting practice on January 14th and your first event doesn't happen until mid-March. And you're training, you're working really hard, and for the kids that have never rowed before, they're thinking, what did I sign on for? I think I even heard one lady say that rowing wasn't a sport, it was a cult. And so we're excited.
Good transition to you.
Yeah, I know, right? Just having so many, obviously, like you mentioned, the 2-month break in between starting practice and starting, the actual season. I mean, having so many events back to back to back like you guys have, I mean, what can you learn about your team real quick, knowing that you have so many events stacked up behind one another?
I think we learned from our mistakes. So, last year we did get to go to the national championships, and any time that you even go is a remarkable experience. And sometimes I think if you've had students that have won the national championship, they think that if they go back and they don't win it somehow, that's not a good thing, just to get to the national championships. So there was a long number of years that we didn't go, so it's not lost on us. But what we knew about last year was by the time we saw anybody in March, we were 10 seconds behind the #1 ranked crew in the nation, and that's where we stayed. All crews got faster through the course of the year, but nobody could close that gap on the 10 seconds. So I think learning from that mistake was to try to come up with a better base going into racing season. So we really haven't shifted gears into a lot of that high intensity short-term interval training. We've just started to do that within the last week. Otherwise, before that, it was just really trying to work on our aerobic base. And we've done some performance time trials where, generally we'll do a performance time trial every 2 weeks. Well, we've started to do 2 performance time trials in a shorter period of time to get us an idea what our depth is really like. So if we are going to go into a heat in the morning and then moving into a repechage in the afternoon, do we have the fitness to be able to do that? Are there students that can do it better than others? And that's also helping us drive our decisions about who's racing in what boats. So learn from your mistakes and recognize that if you want the outcome to be different, then you're going to have to train a little bit different. So I feel like that was the one thing that we changed in our training program this year. Thanks, guys.
Mid-season form already.